Welcome to the Road Hunters podcast. But coming into part two now, and let's have a bit of a focus on your kind of journey then from the health and fitness into this kind of car world. So
Yep.
I assume do you come from like a PT kind of background or an S&C background?
How I transitioned from health and fitness to motorsport was when I finished school. I went into gym, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was doing really well in the likes of soccer and Gaelic football. So I decided
Mhm.
to try focus more on that and be like a
Yeah, Gaelic
coach.
football seems a very it seems really cool to watch from what I've seen of it, but it seems pretty hardcore as well.
Yeah,
At the
it's
same time.
incredible, and hurling as well. Like hurling is just
Yeah.
an unbelievable sport. So I think it hurling and drifting is fairly on the same par for me. So I ended up going into like sports and recreation in college and then gym management, and then spend the next 7 years just in the fitness industry, becoming a PT, working in sales, becoming a manager in gyms. And at the time was spending a lot of time in Mondello and just the drift scene and going to pretty much every single event, whether it was a championship or whether it was just a track day, watching cars and just being around that environment. So I literally hung around a bit too long, and they offered me to become a marshal at one of the Irish Amateur Drift Championships. And from there, then they asked me to become a marshal for the Irish Drift Championship. And from that, then actually became I think we did BDC as well. So I was a marshal for BDC, and then after that, then I actually got a full time role working with the lads at Drift Games. So at the time, we were running the Irish Drift Championship, the British Drift Championship, Drift Emirates, and Drift Masters. I think it was 2018, and that was just a dream job. Just being involved so much within drifting and actually getting paid in drifting. It was just
Mm.
it was just such a cool time. And then their business model changed, and I was like, okay, well, if I had all these connections, I still want to work in the drift scene. So what I ended up doing was working with a crowd called Murray Motorsport, who were and still are probably one of the biggest motorsport distributors in Europe.
Mhm.
And worked with them for 2 years, and then actually opened up my own motorsport online store. And then after that, moved over to the UK and became an operations manager for a motorsports academy. And while there, I was like, right, is there anything that I'd like to do before I settle and before things go right? This is where my life is heading. Is there anything I'd like to achieve or do or try before I do that? And I was like, yeah, too many things. So I was like, right, what's the biggest possible thing that I could possibly ever think of? And that was the last project of trekking from the UK to Australia.
Yeah, cool. That's really cool. I'm really involved then in the scene, the drift and the motorsport scene, and being
Yeah.
really involved in that is really really cool. I like that. So, so you'd done that previous trek, and you'd obviously still had this love for cars while you was doing that, and you'd obviously kind of changed careers a little bit into the management of I suppose sales and management of different motorsports. So what then came about with this thinking? Right, let's think of another project. And how did you kind of come up with the idea then of the drift around the world?
So when I got to Australia, I didn't really know what I was going to do because the whole project and my whole mindset was literally just to get to Australia, and I
Yeah.
had no idea what I wanted to do after. So I ended up getting a holiday working visa and just working down in Australia, and I felt like I was still on the project, because I'm now in a different country and I'm pretty much doing the same thing because I still have very little money, so I'm kind of just working to get by.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, well, if I could do another project and anything again was possible, what would I do? And I tried to think of ways that I could implement the things that didn't work so well in the first project, like trying to create the content, trying to edit, trying to find food, trying to find shelter, trying to find all these things that took away from the sense of creating content and awareness.
Hmm.
So, right, if I had a vehicle, then that gives me transport and a place to sleep. And if I'm able to cook out of it, that gives me food then as well. So I have those three things sorted, and then that gives me more time to work on content and editing. So I'm like, cool. What we're going to do is try drive back. And I I don't believe in coincidences anymore. So I was in Calder Park queuing up for Adam LZ World Tour in Australia, and I was one of the I was working on Adam LZ Fest, so it was the first Adam LZ Fest in Mondello, which I went to and worked at, and then now I could see it becoming this world thing, and then I was a spectator being there, and I was just queuing up, and I was just so grateful to just be a spectator and not have to worry and organize and think, and it was just nice to be a spectator. So I was thinking in my head, I was like, right, no, Andy, look, as much as you love drift cars, do not think about building a drift car here in Australia because you're only here for a year. I'm like, okay, right, okay. And I was thinking, oh, I'm getting a drift car. I just get it. Like, it doesn't matter from here, 6 months, 3 months, 2 weeks. I want a drift car. So then, literally in the queue, I thought it was me and the girl I was staying with, and we just turned to each other and we were just like, how about what if I built a drift car and drove it back to Ireland? And after that, the very next person that I told, so I made the decision in the queue to go into Calder Park.
Oh, it's back. Can you see
I'm
us?
not sure if you're still there, so I'm gonna keep
Oh,
going anyway.
yeah, go for it.
So yeah, in the queue in Calder Park is where I made the decision that I'm definitely going to do this. And the very, very next person that I told, so like outside of like me and Sarah, the very next person that I told was actually Dave Egan.
Nice,
So I went, yeah,
nice.
and that was the very first person, and he was just like, I remember his reaction. He was just like, that's a big drift week." So for people that don't know, drift week is basically a week
Yeah,
where you just
yeah,
drive from one location to another and drift at each location. So go to different tracks, and yeah, it'll just be like one maybe whole year, like a week long, or a year long week of drifting.
yeah. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, that was pretty incredible.
I,
I feel like
I
I'm just talking to
feel.
myself now, which I probably am because I see the little
Oh,
timer going up there. But I'm just going to keep talking. I'm going to try ask myself questions that you might want to know. So once I realized that I'm going to take on this challenge, I needed to be able to come up with some sort of business plan that I'm like, okay,
mhm,
well, what the budget do I need? What car do I need? What equipment do I need? And is this viable? And can it actually be done? And I think I'm a big
mhm.
believer. Sometimes I'm a big believer, but whether it works is another scenario. But I'm a
Yes,
big believer of starting
huge
before you're
thing.
ready. So I think maybe I gave it a week or two, and I announced that I'm doing this project, and then it was, yeah, put most in place. So because I was in Australia, I really wanted to purchase a car in Australia and drive the whole way back to Ireland. But the prices of secondhand cars are colossal in Ireland, and I, or sorry, so let me revert back. So I really wanted to purchase a car in Australia because I was in Australia, but the prices of secondhand cars in Australia are colossal. Like, they're so expensive. So what I ended up doing was saying, right, if I'm able to purchase the car that I want in another country that's a lot cheaper and bring it in, because I'm going to have to import it anyway. So I might as well try to get the car that I want in the best specs that I need to be able to take on this project. So my first idea was that I'll use a 350 because a Nissan 350Z, because I've driven them loads of times and they take a lot of abuse, and I've even tutored and
Hmm.
taught people how to drift in them, and they are fairly robust with loads of parts, but not huge space, and they're quite heavy if you don't strip them out. So the car that I really wanted to get instead was the car that I actually have, which is a BMW E46 touring or wagon with an M54 B30, so a 3 liter engine. So it's a 3 liter engine wagon BMW, and the
Nice.
plan is to obviously sleep in it. And the reason that I picked this car was that it had an engine that has parts that I can gain anywhere or get anywhere from a motor factors globally, because they were sold globally. I can find hopefully parts in other people's yards. I can, like, there's endless amount of these BMWs globally, and I got silver because most of them are silver. And yeah, there's loads of drift parts. There's a huge amount of drift parts for them as well. So, regards to lock kits and suspension and everything really that you can possibly get for drifting is sold for these particular chassis. And the 3 liter engine, I didn't want to go over the top with like a 1JZ, 2JZ, any
Mhm.
kind of turbo car, even V8,
To keep
because of fuel
reliability.
consumption. I didn't want to be able to have to constantly think of where I'm going to stop for fuel. So we have fuel consumption, we have a place to stay, we have a reliable enough car, um, and we can get parts anywhere. So they were like the key factors that I needed, and I can get it in this chassis. So that's the main reasons that I picked this particular car. Any other questions? I suppose with the car itself, for people that really want to know what I'm actually going to do with the car, I'm putting pretty much everything on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all the social media platforms, which is Andy Howard 213 if you wanted to go follow. But there's three main things that I have to think about from the car's point of view. One of them being the fuel itself. So
Mhm.
with the tank and the way it's designed and the pumps, you can easily have fuel surge. So when you're going sideways and the fuel
Oh,
sloshes to one side in the tank, that your pump can dry, and which causes the car to go in limp mode. And
interesting. Didn't know
I
that.
think I don't want to fill it up with foam because I need to be able to hold as much fuel as possible. So my idea is that I'll run two fuel pumps with a swirl pot, and at least that way the fuel will always be in the swirl pot and will feed the engine from the swirl pot rather than the tank itself straight to the engine. Is my theory, and what I might try to do. The other thing is lock kits.
Cool.
I really want to run as much lock as possible, but with as much lock as possible, you have bigger arms, and if you have bigger arms, you have a tendency then for the shocks to lean and create an awful lot of camber on the wheels, which then in turn then puts an awful lot of wear on the inside of the tire on the road. So majority of the time I'll be just driving on the road anyway, but I also want to have that extra lock. So I'm trying to come up with a way that I can either adjust the tower itself or have an arm that's slightly shortened but also has more lock. And I don't want to go welded knuckles and stuff because I can't get that sort of thing anywhere. I just want
Yeah,
to be able
yeah.
to go
You
into
need
the
to be
auto
able to get it
factors and go,
anywhere in
can
the
I get
world.
one of those? Or if it's the case that I have a lock kit from a particular brand or company, then I'll bring spares with me. Um, that is the pump, that is the steering, and then the third thing is keeping the car cool. So because of the engine and the block that it is, you cannot let the cars overheat. It's different to an iron block or cast block that'll take a bit of abuse if they do get hot.
Yeah,
But these
aluminium,
particular
aren't they?
engines, you cannot let them overheat. So I have done quite a lot of research, and shout out to Chelsea Denova. He swears by a clutch fan or a viscous fan. So I'm going to try to get a viscous to go onto
Hmm.
it, go onto the engine to be able to cool down the fan. And then I think I'm going to keep everything pretty much standard on the cooling systems because I don't think the B&W cooling systems aren't badly designed. I think that people don't change them or replace them and they crack and break. And there's a lot of plastics bits to it. So I think I'll try keep it OEM. So therefore, if something breaks, I can just get it in auto factors. And I'll probably just get
Yeah,
an alloy rad. So thankfully, Mishimoto will come on board. So we'll probably get an ally rad, but try keep everything else standard because if I need a part in Kazakhstan or Afghanistan or anywhere at all, that hopefully I can just go into a motor factors and purchase the parts that I need. And that is the three things with the car. Um, the biggest things that I have to consider anyway. Other than that, I'm like trying to make the car look cool and be as reliable as possible. So I think the priority to the car is reliable, durable, and looks cool. I think that's the three things that I'm trying to achieve in those orders. And knowing me, it'll probably be flipped upside down and I'll just have looks cool. Um, Also,
love
wheels.
it.
I need to really consider what I'm going to do with the wheels themselves because I want to run 18s because I want the car to look cool as possible, but I also don't want to.
Bugger, it's gone. So yeah, technical difficulties, but it's still all recorded, which is great.
Brilliant.
So yeah, so we got up to the wheels. So 18. So what? Just to go over some of the bits I was saying to myself
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
was
Go ahead.
interesting about the heating. with the engines. So in my new project, it's been fabbed for an M54 engine. Now
Yes.
the one with it is an M54 B25.
Yeah.
Not quite sure why not the B30 because you've got that extra 40 horsepower. But I think the idea was that they were going to turbo it anyway, and obviously I'm bought in it as they've done the first bit and that's it. Um, but they do, like I say, seem quite reliable engines, lots of parts for them, but it was sold around the world
Yeah.
cheap. Interesting about the viscous fan. I've made a note of that because I need to obviously look into that because I'm doing it. And interesting about the pumps. I did not realize that about the fueling, which also makes me think I probably need to check the RX-8 for any potential because they're not really used that much and what they're like in heavy cornering actually, and potentially something like a swirl pot could actually be worth it just to keep that engine from going lean, because obviously if that starts happening a lot, that's not good. The whole point of like the M54 is it's cheap and it can make good power, but it's not cheap if you keep on going lean and it keeps on getting knocked and blowing up. So very interesting point that. So yeah, I listen to when you're going on the tires on the wheels. So you're going to go
Yeah.
for 18s, fill those arches, look gangster. Um, my question is what, and I suppose you don't really know this until you go, but what is tire selection like across the world? Would be a question.
So tires, I still have to figure out. So and on the sizes as well. So I really want to run 18s, but I have to think of two things, two major things. That if I run 18s, there's a lot of pressure on everything else,
Mm,
because obviously the tire size then as well, and because I'm not running a massive amount of well, at the moment, I won't be having that much suspension or geometry settings that I can
mhm,
play with. The biggest settings that I'll play with is just spring rate and tire pressures. So I can't have a big wall with an 18 as well because it just throws an awful lot of pressure on everything else. So I'll probably run 17s. The other thing is on the 18s that if I am running 18s, I don't like any of the 18 B&W wheels. In fact, I don't like any B&W
right.
wheels. But if I was to get aftermarket ones, then they have a tendency to probably get nicked on me. So if I have just standard
Mhm,
B&Ws, people are just like, why would I bother? Because they're literally everywhere. So and I need sets. So I need at minimum 8 wheels. So I'll have four on the car and four on the roof, for like spares and stuff then as well. But tire sizes, more than likely I'll be running 17s, and I will try keep everything square so I can constantly swap everything around.
yes.
So more than likely it'll be probably 215 45 17s, and probably run around maybe 205s or maybe 220s. But yeah, so far it's 215 45 17s. But I mean, if somewhere just sells 17s and I need them, I'll just get them. Um,
Yeah,
but to me, it's all more about fun. It's and the only reason I'm thinking about spring rates and tire pressures is just to be able to keep up with people, and have fun. So I don't want to be, say, on a wet day and the car to be really stiff and for me to not go anywhere. I want to be up in people's doors and create a bit of content and just have a bit of fun with everybody, and to to not be able to do that with such a minimum thing would be annoying.
yeah. No, I've got. I think wheels make a massive difference to the car. I've got a thing. I quite like smaller wheels, but then when you've got the big arches, you kind of need that size. But then you want the tires and the cost and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
complicated
to
world
be
when I think
fair,
of it.
it's more the ratios, and
Mm,
obviously the final ratio on the diff, and then your ratio then on the wheel itself, because you can run 19s if you want with like a different diff, but it's more, yeah, it's more just trying to find out what actually works for the car, and then after that, then I mean, I like to just keep everything standard, and if you keep everything
yeah.
standard, then at least then you can work up slowly to figure out what works for the car and you.
Yeah, if you change an awful lot of stuff, then you don't know what is actually working and what's not working and what's going to be. That makes a lot of sense. And like you say, you're obviously trying to do this where you can get parts, where you can get things as you go through the world, pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, so, so what kind of so as you're going through, then is the idea to kind of go to kind of drift days, local events, car events, kind of things like that as you're traveling through. What's the sort of plan as you move through?
So really, what I want to do is to showcase that showcase global drifting and just the car community
Mm,
itself. So I envision me going to be able to go into these towns or villages, or even just go into cities, and for boys to message me or girls to message me saying that like there's a car meet happening here or there's an event happening here, and to be able to just go along with them and try just
Awesome.
document that journey, and to show people that these things are out there, because the power of social media is just incredible.
Yes.
And um, using social media in that kind of a way can highlight the
Mm.
positives of social media and connection
Mm.
and community, rather than just utilizing it, rather than trying to go off and find things myself or organize things myself. I want to be able to show that there is existing things already out there.
Yeah, definitely. Like we were saying earlier about, it's obviously there's negatives potentially of social media, but when you're kind of using it that and to find the communities and getting, that's a really really cool idea, and it's what we use nowadays. So I think that's going to be really good. So what's the rough sort of have you kind of planned out your journey roughly?
Yeah,
Kind of
so I
know
mean,
where you're looking at?
yesterday, so I decided that I'll allow people, well, not allow people, but I'll be able to showcase to the journey a bit more in detail if I have actually something laid out. So um, I have a couple of different routes, and I won't really know which one I'm going to take until I'm actually need to make that kind of decision, because
Hmm.
anything can happen in the world. The last project I was just arrived in Turkey when Turkey had that massive earthquake, and it's just stuff that you can't actually determine. So
Yes.
once the car is in Australia, I hope then to be able to island hop all the way to Asia, so to be able to go to Singapore. So it'll be on a shipping container from either Brisbane or Darwin, and then be brought down to Asia, or brought up to Asia. Once I'm in Asia, then it will be going through Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. From Thailand, I can either go. I don't know if this camera is faced this way or this way, but I'll be able to explain. So up through Thailand, and I can either go Laos or I can go
Hmm.
Myanmar. So
Oh,
if I
okay.
go,
Yeah.
they have like a war, like a civil war at the moment, which is like
Yes.
off, like really, really bad. But if I go through Laos, I have China, and in China, they don't have Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or anything like
Mm,
that. China is China's huge.
it is. Yeah.
I mean, it's bigger than what you see here, but it's Thailand, Laos, and then all of this. So it's almost like a quarter of the whole journey will be through China. And if I can't like document that, or if I can't even show people that I'm okay and still alive, that it kind of defeats the purpose of a community and showcasing.
Mm,
If I can get different things like a VPN and all this sort of stuff, then and try work around it, I might. So at the moment, that's the first decision: is Myanmar or China. And then if I continue up to China, I'll either go through all the stands, Kazakhstan. So I'll have uh, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan, and then from there either into Russia or over the Caspian Sea into Georgia. Once I'm in
hmm.
Georgia, then it's Turkey to Europe, and then the opposite way then would be from Thailand to Myanmar across
Yeah.
into India, and then either through Bangladesh or Nepal. And then in through either, I have to pick then one of two, because I really want to go back to Kazakhstan and showcase what Kazakhstan's known
Yeah.
for.
I think from like you saying last time, it's you've definitely got to get there and showcase
Unbelievable.
that.
So, if I can, the only way to do that from here would be up to North India, go through Afghanistan, then Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan.
Hmm.
And the other way of going then would be India, Pakistan, and then through Iran, and then through Turkey, and then into Europe. So there's a few different ways to go, but the first one is from Thailand, either Myanmar or China, and then the next one is either Pakistan or Afghanistan.
Hmm. No, cool. Yeah, I
So
suppose that's it. And you're going to have to see as you're doing that as well what the situations are like currently, like you say, with Burma Myanmar. Like you say, you have got those kind of wars going on, and there's obviously unsettled areas throughout.
yeah,
But it's an interesting point, like you say, if you was to go through China, then do you have that social media want to find people and find kind of the local scenes, and then obviously documenting it yourself. I think it's going to be really really cool.
yeah,
So
different.
obviously you're doing the yeah, definitely, definitely. Obviously you're doing this with Make a Wish Foundation. So obviously when you're going through and who you're going to do it with and raise money and kind of got that awareness, what was the thinking behind that one? Like, how did they sort of you come to think, right, this is where we're going to head with this?
Yeah, so I'm an open and honest character, so I try to be as open and honest with everybody. So therefore, I don't have any faces, but just my own. So what ended up happening was, because I supported um, the Samaritans and Beyond Blue and everything. So in
Hmm.
that project, they didn't want to have any involvement because the project was seen as too high risk. So if anything
Right.
happened to me, then they were seen as being liable because I was doing it for them. So what ended up happening was, for this project, I was like, this is kind of like a childhood dream for me. I said, if I could fulfill other people's dreams, especially children's dreams, then this sounds like a massive win for everybody. So I'm like,
Yep.
uh, not only can I fulfill mine, but I can fulfill other people's dreams. So I was like, cool, this sounds great. So I reached out to Make a Wish, and from day one, Make a Wish UK and Make a Wish Australia were like super on board. Like they were just couldn't wait for the project to be started. We had like loads of Zoom calls and everything, and they were just really hyped about the idea. But because it was a global challenge, they needed Make a Wish International to come on board
Mm.
and to give me the light. So thankfully, yeah, Make a Wish International now are on board, and yeah, raising funds for Make a Wish International now as a whole.
Awesome. Well, that's going to be, yeah, that's really, really cool and definitely going to make a big impact on people.
Yeah, yeah.
So obviously going off, you did the trekking adventure, and obviously you took an awful lot from that. What are you expecting from this? Like, what do you think your kind of feeling and coming out of this is going to be? Different
Throughout,
places, more communities. Yeah, throughout the journey, like as a
yeah,
personal element to it.
for me, I love challenging myself, and I actually really enjoy putting myself in an uncomfortable scenario to find myself comfortable in that scenario to then learn and grow.
Hmm.
So it's the quickest way to learn and the quickest way to adapt to things and figure out more about yourself. So I'm looking forward to like every single challenge. I mean, like even now, like all the challenges of like doing this full time and not having like a fixed income and trying to
Mm.
spend lots of money on actually getting the car sorted. So these are all like really small, uncomfortable times for me that I have to try jump over and try problem solve to be able to just keep that one step forward one step forward kind of movement to be able to say like I'm actually making progress here. So everything about it is seen as quite a massive challenge. So once I get through that and the car is in Australia and I'm moving, I envision then just being able to meet up with people and drive the car to show people. Like even just being in Australia and having a wagon there, like I didn't see one BMW wagon. So just to be able to see people's faces with like an English plate on the back of it, I think would be very funny.
Definitely.
And just I'm looking forward to seeing people's expressions. I'm looking forward to the people that I've already told this in Australia that I'm doing, just to be able to be there with the car and show them. And then as I move throughout the journey, to be able to showcase just drifting communities, and hopefully then to meet up with Make a Wish children and just to be able to create that atmosphere and that community and to be able to showcase that really anything is possible and dreams do come true. So I'm just looking forward to getting all those really really small wins and to just showcase it and document it as best I can.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it, and I really like you. Wish you all the best on it. I think it's going to be an incredible journey, which I'm sure you're obviously going to grow from again and find new highlights. And obviously, you've done the trekking and this one in a sort of different way, and I know obviously we're going to support the work and the charity, and we'll get obviously everything out that we can. But I think also just seeing these cultures as you go across the world on this um, passion that everybody has, I think
Mm,
that's going to be really really interesting as well, because obviously we hear often limited things about different parts of the world.
yeah, yeah,
And what people want us to hear. So I think, yeah, seeing this is going to be really, really cool. And I definitely wish you
yeah.
the best of luck going through it, because it's going to be epic, I think.
I just appreciate that,
100%.
and as I said, like I really appreciate your support and interest in the project, and hopefully I can document everything as best as I possibly can. I kind of also envision that I might be able to get more video photographers in different countries to be able to
Mm,
document stuff along with, and maybe even hop in the car with me and
absolutely.
go to different events and everything. So, yeah, I just really appreciate your support and interest in the project, and your time to be able to talk to me for the last hour and a half.
No, it's yeah, it's awesome, and really, I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, we'll leave all the links below for everybody to check out and be on board. But we really do wish you the best of luck, because
Appreciate that.
it's not something that happens every day, and I think it's going to be it'll be a testament to BMW as well. All right, they should give you
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
like reliability,
Yeah, yeah,
like sort of money for promoting that. If you want to get across the world, use a BM. Why not? Very different. But
exactly.
yeah, thank you very much, Andy. We'll stop it here, and all the best of luck. We'll no doubt catch up as well. So obviously later,
Thanks very much.
everybody. Like, make sure to check out Andy's socials and keep up with this incredible. In fact, actually, when are you looking to start the journey? Actually, is the last question.
So the plan is so that everything's working around the car now at the moment. So once the car is
Mm,
ready, then the car will be shipped off then to Australia, and then once the car lands, then I'll meet it there and we'll begin the journey. So it all works around the car, but with anything you need to have a deadline on these kind of things. So I've given myself the deadline to be able to get the car on the shipping container by December, and then spend Christmas then with family in
yeah,
Ireland, then meet the car then in the new year. So hopefully
well, that'll be
I'll be
nice
able
because
to.
you'll have good weather over there,
Yeah,
so
so it'll
it'll
be
be
there
nice,
summer.
sunny.
Be there summer.
Yeah, you'll transition as you go across. That'll be all
Yeah, I'll just
right.
follow the
Best
sun
way.
around the world.
Love it. Right, brilliant. Thanks again, Andy. And we'll stop
Cheers,
that
Dave.
there.
Much
So